backdrop. And I can see Rhonda. I know Rob Woods is on because I heard him. I think that's everybody. And I know Orla is on. And Dottie Durst is with us, so that's good. So it's 7:06 p.m. and we'll officially call this meeting to order. So we'll have the record show that all 6 members of the Board of Finance are present. We'll move on to correspondence. I have a few items to read that were submitted through the email. Let's see. Here's one from Diana Kuchar, who is the town's assessor. Let's see. This was submitted Monday, April 20th, 4:21 p.m. It says, I am writing as a follow-up to Reni's correspondence regarding the impact of revaluation. In the past, any significant increase in the values due to revaluation has yielded a decrease in the mill rate. The amount of increase in real estate values we had due to the current market has not happened in Thompson in quite some time. Although Mr. Moran's memo references the overall increase of 15.9%, our total real estate grand list has gone up by 18%. This means the mill rate will impact the taxes on real estate harder. Also, since residential property values increased more than commercial, many well above the average, homeowners will be the most affected by the final mill rate. Based on what I have heard so far during the budget workshops, I appreciate that the board members have also voiced their concerns this year. Okay. That was from Diana Kuchar, assessor. And let's see. This one comes to us from, let's see. This is from Danielle Carlson, 3 Rachel Drive, North Grovenordale. And it looks like Friday, April 17, 9:56 a.m. is when this was emailed to the Selectman's office. All right, it says, I would like to speak about how setting a flat budget is setting up both town and school to fail. As we have seen from the 2019 to 2020 school budget, it was not enough and costs ran over budget. Costs that are not costs that can be cut. We run a flat budget. We are setting up the school to overspend. We need to be mindful that the school budget is status quo and maintaining programs and same staff. Increases are contractual and special ed costs. We go in with a flat budget. We would be robbing the children of the educational standards they are accustomed to. It says we robbing the children. It says we robbing children, but I'm assuming it means we would be robbing the children. COVID-19 has already taken a lot from these students. Can we justify taking away their status quo? On the town side, we flatten their budget. We could be pushing aside projects that have been pushed aside for a long time, such as the salt shed. My family and I live on Rachel Drive. We are in city water. We are close to the town garage. We would be one of the first families to experience the devastation of pollution in our water. I would hope that our elected officials would not sit on this project any longer, knowing families' health could be in jeopardy. A flat budget could have repercussions that will cost the town more money in the end. I can relate to how COVID-19 is economically devastating. My business is closed indefinitely, and we are down to one income. Our home evaluation also went up. I'm the person who has been hit hard by the current situation. We are all in, but also see the importance of budgeting and planning for a better tomorrow. So I ask, when you start looking at this budget, you consider the bigger picture that these budgets have costs that will cost us today or tomorrow. We should be facing them head on with logical planning and not pushing aside. Today we are dealing with COVID-19. What could we be dealing with tomorrow? I'm hoping for bigger and longer term thinking when these budgets are gone through. Thank you. Okay, again, that was from Danielle Carlson of 3 Rachel Drive. And I've got 2 more to read. This one is from Lawrence Labonte, 141 Church Street in Thompson. Looks like this was submitted on Saturday, April 18 at 10:30 a.m. Subject, budget comments, message, only a flat budget is acceptable under current circumstances. That was it. That was the extent of the submission. And then finally, let's see, we have submitted on Friday, April 17, 7:15 p.m. This is from Tracy Walker, 1160 Quadic Town Farm Road in Thompson. Subject, budget comments, message. Tracy and Kevin Walker, 1160 Quadic Town Farm Road. I urge caution in approval of the Thompson budget regarding the anticipated state income to Thompson. When the budgeted expenses are approved, the town is required to fund that amount regardless of the amount of the state grant amounts provided. The current circumstances put at risk any promised state funding approved last year. I suggest that all citizens of the town of Thompson be wary of any budget increases during this time of uncertainty. If more funds from taxation are needed in the future, we may approve the increase using the town meeting and referendum method. Okay, and again, that was from Tracy Walker, 1160 Quadic Town Farm Road. It looks like the chat button has been active while I've been talking. So let's see, we've got Dick Trudeau, 192 Wager Road. Is it not possible to pass a flat budget and then, as things settle down, to go to an increase by town meeting and referendum if necessary? Okay. I believe that's it. I don't see anything else. Any other citizens' comments? Oh, here we go. Here's something. This is from Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. Again, another request for a second session of citizens' comments. Also, the BOE budget is asking for some capital expenditures and contractual obligations only. The town should be handling capital expenditures. It is a town building. Any cuts will decimate programming further. And finally, there has been no clarifying statements from the BOF to the public in regards to the presentation done on the cost of outsourcing the school. It's beyond time for the board to stop being negligent in allowing false information to be pervasive in our community. Same as Danielle, we also are affected by COVID, is significantly affecting our income. However, there is a much larger picture that we need to look toward and not have lasting repercussions to town and school. Okay, that is from Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. Any other citizens' comments?
Aaron,
Go ahead, Sean.
are you on citizens' comments right now? You were on.
I'm looking at the agenda and I realized that I inadvertently skipped over correspondence, so I guess we'll. I'm reading these emails that came in from earlier this week, and they really should be under citizens' comments. So that's my mistake. But I would say, sure, go ahead. If you have a comment, go ahead, Sean.
Okay, Sean Brissett, Whittemore Ave. You hear a lot of talk about a flat budget, and I want to remind everybody on the Board of Finance that our Board of Ed budget this year is a status quo budget. In putting it together, we recognized, costs that we can't control, including healthcare this year, which is, a much higher increase than we've been getting in the recent past, at least, pushes us to a point that all we can look for is status quo, just keeping the staff and the programs that we have in place. And so it's easy to understand that any cut of any amount is going to result in cuts to something, whether it be a program, whether it be staff. And as elected officials, we take the arrows when we make decisions that aren't popular, but we're supposed to be making the decisions in the best interests of who we're supposed to be serving. And, for us, it's the school, but for the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, it's the entire town. It is every citizen, including the children. And so when we ask for a dollar amount, you know, what I hope that you'll do in going through our budget is understand this is what is needed. And at some point, the decision has to be made. Are you putting together a spending plan that meets the minimum basic needs of the town? I understand that we have roads that we need to take care of, and we have a salt shed we need to take care of. And so I don't sit here saying, you know, cut those things. We have to figure out the best way to fund the minimum basic needs that the town needs. And that's what we're doing. And if it means that some arrows get thrown, whether it's your way, our way, or the Board of Selectmen's way, then that's what happens, and that's what we deal with as elected officials. But you're going to be able to look yourself in, you know, in the mirror and say, did I provide the kids with what they need, just as long as, you know, I provided the average citizen with what they need. We have a surplus every year. I'm curious too, just, I know this is comments and not questions, but I'm just curious if anything's come down from the governor regarding, or from the state regarding what is acceptable at this point for a surplus, because I would imagine at some point that's going to change too, because towns are going to have to use it. You know, whether you call it a rainy day fund, I certainly think everybody would agree this is a rainy day. So that's something that normally I'm not a big proponent of, but I would say, you know what, this might be a year where we need to dip into that because of the extraordinary circumstances. But I hope you understand what we're looking for is just status quo. And so any cut, when I believe these kids, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe these kids are going to need what they have more than ever, if not more, next year. So really just understanding the budget is what I'm imploring that you do moving forward, and making sure that as a town, we're putting forward a spending plan that meets the needs of the town. All right, thank you.
Sean, what was your address again?
Whittemore Ave, hopefully for another month
Great.
or less.
Great,
May I?
thank you.
May I?
Yes, so go ahead, Kathleen, yes.
Kathleen Herbert, 122 Wilsonville Road. I'd like to add add some points to what Sean is saying. In the 1920 school year, we made some steps to significantly reduce the costs. Not only are we maintaining the status quo at the school, we took steps to reduce costs. We changed our insurance plan to CT CHIP because we were looking at a 20% increase in insurance. So we came into that last year with only an 8% increase in insurance, health insurance. Unfortunately, the consortium we joined, and Thompson being the leader of that consortium, experienced a very high health experience rate, and we're reaping on the 19.5%. We had a reduced HSA contribution through our contracts, which brought our effective rate down to 17%. Also, in transportation, our contract costs are 3%. We're negotiating now with DATCO, so we may end up with some savings for this year. But next year, because we joined the Bradley program, or hosting the Bradley program for our special education out of district, we brought that back down to 2.5% because we're not running as many minibuses to outsourcing our kids out of district. We're bringing them back to the school, even though they're considered out of district. If you look at our presentation, there's a significant savings in out of district placing. What hurt us was that last year we budgeted for what we had at the end of fiscal year 18-19, 16 students. We had 26 or 28, then back down to 26. But instead of spending an average of 94.5 thousand on each student, we are now spending 38.5 on those students that we're able to bring into the Bradley program, which saves us $56,000 on each of those students that we're able to bring back in-house to the Bradley program. So we are doing our best to look for places to save money. And we're scouring for grants. We're scouring for places to save money in the school. And I think we're doing a very good job of it. Now, there are places where we can't, in all honesty, bring these kids back into the Bradley program. It doesn't fit for everyone, but Chris Jones is doing his best to do that. So we're not just sitting around. We are trying to save the town money. And the status quo is the status quo by trying our best to use taxpayers' dollars effectively, efficiently, and economically. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? All right, so my apologies. I did this out of order. I went to citizens' comments first, and I skipped correspondence. I know that there's been some emails going around since the last meeting that are like from the finance director to the Board of Finance. I'm not aware of anything, and maybe I'm overlooking, but if there's anything from the outside other than the citizens' comments. Is anybody aware of anything that we've gotten outside of that, outside of correspondence from the finance director?
Aaron, I know Marla, who is the inland wetlands agent. I think she shared something with you guys today.
Okay.
Maybe you can address it at the next Board of Finance meeting. It came through Amy, I believe.
Right. I believe
Okay.
Amy,
We did get that.
Oh, is that, I see, that references the salt shed.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, I'm going to open this up. It's a lot of words here, but yes, it looks like this is from Jessica DeMar of the Connecticut Water Company. Maybe this is just correspondence that that Marla had accumulated in relation to the salt shed, because it looks like this this item from Jessica DeMar is actually one of many items. I'm scrolling down. So obviously this is information about the salt shed, yes? Okay, great. Anything else? Go ahead.
Aaron, this is Amy Sainonge. Just in case the board didn't get a chance to read through what I sent today, and can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It is a correspondence, yes, between Connecticut Water and Marla, our wetlands agent. And basically it is stating that Connecticut Water intends to not just do testing on the water sources near the current salt shed, but they're actually going to be testing private wells as well. The other 4 pages that I sent you date back to 2008 when DEEP suggested that the salt shed be replaced. So I sent that today because I do believe it's still an urgent need that we can't ignore any longer.
this is Steve from Herbert from Amy, I did have a chance to look at those letters, and the 2008 letters were more than a sort of a suggestion. They were pretty adamant about some changes that had to be made. I don't think it ever got to the point where anybody was calling their lawyers or anything, but it wasn't a gentle nod. It was a, you got to fix some things.
And what was interesting to me was that on one of the correspondences, on item number 4 in the correspondence, it says that this suggestion actually dates back to 1985.
Right.
So certainly something that we don't want to really raise a red flag to, but we definitely want to start making progress towards doing something about this salt shed.
if I might, again, Steve, again, Rob Burge at our last meeting talked about setting up an analysis that would help guide us as to what and when we need to take action on this. I think that's a very wise suggestion.
And Steve, Aaron, could I jump in as well?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
It's Rob Wurge, Board of Finance. You're right, Amy. It did reference 1985, so it goes back quite a ways. I guess I would just urge Amy, yourself, and Rich, as you look at this, to keep the problem front and center, the problem being the SALT migration. Now, the solution may be a brand new building of the scale that we're talking about, and it may be other solutions. So I would be interested in not only the data suggestion from the last meeting, but also what are the alternatives that we have as a town to safely solve the problem? In other words, if the migration of salt is the problem, is there more than one way to fix that? And it's not a question to try to find a Band-Aid answer. That's not where I'm going with it. Where I'm going with it is, are there other solid ways that would satisfy the studies that were done in the past in 2008, the current data, solve that, but what options do we have to solve that outside of the one on the table, which is a very, very expensive option? That's all.
Okay. All right, and that was officially under correspondence. Any other correspondence that I'm missing? All right, we just covered citizens' comments, so we can go into the budget workshop. And I believe where we left off, we were on page 101 of our handouts. And I remember I had the spreadsheet from the Board of Education was opened up on my desktop because we were looking at items that have been sent to the Board of Finance that may or may not officially be considered capital projects for the purposes of our budget this year. So one of them was,
This is,
looks like,
again,
go ahead, Steve.
I was going to just, again, this is Steve from the Board of Finance. I'm going to suggest, just as at least as a way to get the conversation started, that we do take the school's proposed capital items and consider them, part of the town's, the overall town's, I don't mean the town versus the school, I mean the overall town's capital budget plan, that we move them into the town's budget plan. I think that would be a wise move on the MBR issue, if nothing else.
Erin, can I speak? Rhonda Rooney.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Steve, what was that number again for the capital expenses for the school?
I think it was 155, but I might be off on that. Kathleen, maybe if you could allow her to speak. If I don't know if she has that number.
Yep.
Yep.
So let me, I guess I'll put it to Kathleen. Kathleen, what was that number, and what constitutes a capital expense versus a
Okay.
repair? Is it
It
a
is-
dollar amount? What?
It's $226,500. There is the high school floor, which can be done in phases. So that's the high school locker room for 38. Okay, the high school floor is total of $85,500. The high school locker room is $38,250,000. There's the high school HVAC system control upgrades for $10,000. The high school electric power upgrades for $12,500. The high school shop HVAC system for $67,735. And the middle school masonry repairs, that's where the building needs to be repointed. We talked to Amy about that. That may be done this spring. I'm not sure if we went ahead with that or not. That's 12,500. That the building is leaking into the upper stories. I don't know that Bill Birch is on tonight. He can speak more to that. One of the contractors we had contacted said that he was willing to do the work and not get paid right away, just to keep his crew busy. So I'm not sure whether that is happening or not. So the total of the projects was $226,500. Actually $505, but you know, that's a round
So
number.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
Rhonda Rooney, Board of Finance. It
Yep.
sounds like these might be all little repairs. I know we had this discussion with the library, what constituted repairs versus capital improvements. And in that conversation, if my memory was correct, a new roof was considered a capital improvement, and some other things like service to the HVAC system and things like that were considered repairs.
No, the
So
high
my
school-
question is,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
my question to you is, what constitutes a repair versus a capital improvement
Okay,
project?
in my mind, some of these could be repairs. I'll agree with you that some could be repairs, but others are definitely capital improvements. The high school shop HVAC system is a capital expenditure. That's $67,730 or so. That is an actual capital. You're putting a new HVAC system in. That's not a repair to the old system. You're putting a brand new system in.
Okay, so you're saying that the capital improvements are when you put any type of brand new thing into the
Yeah,
high school or the
right.
or the school versus repairing
Right.
something? There's no dollar amount there. It's just a, you know, it could be $500 if it's brand new. It's considered
No.
capital. It could
Now,
be. What are we talking
typically-
about here?
Yeah, typically, large, like I worked for a company that anything over $3,000, it had to be, even if it were a brand new piece of equipment, it had to meet the threshold of $1,500 or $2,000, or you just expensed it anyway because it wasn't worth depreciating. Now, this is municipal accounting, you don't depreciate, but that's what we did. But this is 67,000 over, you know, almost $68,000. So there's no question whether it meets the threshold. And this is a new system. Whereas the masonry repairs, you're going to be repointing the bricks. So I could say, yes, that's most likely a repair. It's not wear and tear on, you know, something that we did inside the building. This is the town building. Now, whether you should pick that up as something for the town, it's not like wear and tear on the inside of the building that was because of the students or anything. You know, so this is where we get to the thin line. Where does the responsibility of the school or the responsibility of the town, because it's their building?
So
You know-
Kathleen, my opinion is everything is the responsibility of the town, big picture, because we're one town.
I agree.
But
I agree, but
what
do
I'm
you
trying-
want- but now we get down to, do you want to add to the MBR?
Well, so that's why I need to determine, that's why I'm trying to figure out what our definition of a capital expense is across the board.
My definition of a capital expenditure is you're putting something new. It's a new piece of equipment, and it's
Okay.
like control. It's a new piece of equipment. You're putting down a new floor, like you're putting in a new roof.
This is Steve Herbert, Board of Finance. Generally speaking, capital items are, first of all, there usually is a dollar threshold. But then if there's an upgrade, or if you extend the life of the original item, whatever it happens to be, that's considered a capital item. And if you modify something substantially, that's considered a capital item. Those are sort of the basic guidelines as to what's a capital versus an expense. And as I think several people have said, if it's a relatively small dollar amount, I think I saw a little note from Orla that things under $10,000 are sort of the amount that we sort of use as a threshold. You might consider all those not, but if it's under 10,000, it's not capital. If it's 10,000 or more, it meets at least the dollar threshold. But then after that, does it change or extend the life of whatever the entity is? Or do you upgrade it? Or do you change the use of it, modify the use? Those are factors that would tend to make it a capital item.
I'm just trying to keep it in line with how we have it, defined with the library, so that we know as a whole what a capital item is across the board, not have different, amounts or projects for the school that are considered that may not be considered capital for the library and that sort of thing.
I think you're right, Rhonda. I think you're absolutely right. We really, just probably as a board, should try to come up with a good definition of, what we want to consider within the general accounting guidelines, what we want to consider, capital or not. You're raising an excellent point.
Okay, Bill Birch has joined the meeting or is joining the meeting, so I think I would like to defer to him.
Go ahead, Bill.
Bill, are you there? Maybe he's not here yet.
Aaron, could I jump in real quick?
Go ahead, Sean.
So part of this, we started this back in January, this discussion, and part of the reasoning behind this, the main driver was the MER, was the thought process on the MER. But as you know, a couple of years ago, we opened up conversation about starting the fund that if we were to have any money left over at the end of the year, we could, we could keep that in a reserve. Started talking more about how do we truly fund special ed. And this is really the next step in that is an understanding with the Board of Finance, because again, as I've said, and I'll throw it out there again, I'm still frustrated that these budgets are separate. It's one town. But it is one town, and really getting an understanding between the Board of Finance and the Board of Education as to where the money should be coming for certain items. I think Steve's suggestion is basically what we're looking for is start the conversation, have the Board of Finance set some guidelines. What is capital and how are we going to deal with it moving forward? Because it definitely affects the MER, which isn't good for anybody, but it also, I think in the tours that we've done with the different boards, you've seen some of the projects that need to get done at the school. That high school was built in 1989, I think was the first class to graduate. That was the last time a coat of paint was put on the locker room. So things like that. This is really just starting that conversation of where should that money be in the budget. So yeah, I think Steve's suggestion is a good one.
Rhonda Rooney, Board of Finance. So where have the items similar to this been in the past? They've been in the operating budget and then just absorbed into that the following year?
Correct. Bill Birch is on now. Can we defer this to Bill? Yes, they have been. So hence our budget keeps increasing for a lot of these large, in my mind, capital expenditures, which if we had put them on the town side, which I agree, the townspeople are paying for this. But with our declining enrollment, as our school budget keeps increasing and our enrollment, now it's pretty steady right now, but in prior years, our enrollment has declined. We missed some opportunities to take advantage of lowering some of our, taking advantage of lowering the school budget because of MBR. So I'm going to ask Bill to talk about some of these projects.
Can I say one more thing to what you just said? Are you stating that you have missed an opportunity to lower the operating budget of the school?
Way back, not last year, not the year before. There were years when we gave us a $75,000 increase to the school's budget. We managed to scrape by. And we talked about, I think it was when Dave Johnson was the chairman of the Board of Finance. And, you know, there is a huge penalty of cutting the school's budget if these capital project type things had been in the town side. You could have kept that MBR lower. I'm not saying today we can do that, even if we take this out.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Appreciate it.
Okay. Keep in mind that I've been following this for going on my probably 15th year of following the schools and the town's budgets here.
So the one thing I'm going to add then on that is I haven't been. I've only been involved for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen, unfortunately, because I have always voted yes on the school budget, and I do support education.
Thank you.
But I have seen that due to the fact that the school budget the tendency of the town is to decline that, and it goes to referendum after referendum. And since I've been on the board for 5 years, it's been the school budget that keeps getting knocked down. And then, you know, I try to put it together. I don't understand, you know, and then you've got all those issues with trust and this and that. And I think that, you know, looking at the questions that I've posed and the answers, I can see where some of that mistrust could have come if we didn't have a policy on, for instance, things like capital improvements and what constitutes it. And some years they're in there as the operating budget, some years they're not. It's very misleading, I would say, to the general public, which puts out a trust issue, which we need to overcome so that we can get the support of the town to support the school as well as the town.
I agree with you.
So that's why I put out some of these questions, because, and I'm not saying, you know, why there is that feeling. I've just gathered that since I've been involved in the board of finance, that there's a huge mistrust issue. And anyway, that's why I'd like to see consistency here and kind of get these questions answered. I understand, I'm not questioning from Bill Birch, why do we need the projects? Do we not need them? That's not the question. I'm sure that you need what you're saying you need. And that really wasn't my question. It was basically the two questions that I posed originally. So thank you, Kathleen.
I, for one, would like to get this type of projects, these capital, in my mind, capital projects out of the school budget. We're in the business of educating. That's why we we outsourced the buses. We're in the business.
And one more, yep, I get your point. So one more question, not to interrupt, but we did pass it so that if there was some money left over in the school budget, it would go into capital projects.
Okay.
And then that's how some of these projects would have gotten paid for. So you're suggesting by transferring this, and this is just a question that maybe you don't know the answer to yet, or maybe you do, but if we were to say, yes, let's make this a policy and let's put all the capital projects over onto the town side. In that case, then we would go back to the other way it was set up for the potential.
Not necessarily. I mean, we could possibly, you gave us 1%, the state allows 2%. Maybe we use those for our major maintenance projects, like remodeling a bathroom, which isn't necessarily capital, or painting, or maybe we use those for major remodeling, you know, with your permission.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious. I wasn't sure how that all would come together.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't look like lately we've had any, you know, surpluses anyway, so it's a moot point at this time, but we're hopefully in future years we may, who knows, put something away into that account. Yeah, it's, I would like to see this go over, and we're in the process, we're in the business. I am for one, putting the budget back together as one budget instead of this bifurcated budget that we have. So I go on record of saying it's, I do not like to see the budget split.
So I apologize for being late,
That's
but
okay, Bill.
if there is any real question about these items, I can explain it. But Kathleen, to your point,
Mm.
I just would like to say that this is my 17th budget that I've put together.
Yep.
And early on, we did try to put these through as capital expenses to the town. And then at that point, there was some change and they said, no, these are operating costs and they need to be in the school budget. But you're correct. Then it hits the MBR and then that's there every year. But bear in mind, when you look at some of these things, I guess the biggest number is, $85,000 for flooring in the high school. We need to remember that those floors are over 30 years old now. And they're pretty beat up, and they have served the town well, and they need to be done. And, as you go down the list, the same thing with the locker rooms. They're over 30 years old. Some of those other things are going to be cost saving in the long run. Upgrades to controls and power is going to be cost saving in the long run. The HVAC system in the shop is something that needs to be done. The middle school masonry absolutely has to be done. There's no way around it. There are leaks there that just have to be fixed. But to that point, when you think about it, I think the point is these are things that need to be done every 30 years, not every year or every 2 years, which would be a maintenance project. But even if you look at the whole facility, the quote unquote new school, the auditorium, the high school, the early childhood center, it's 12 years old now. Time goes by and things need to be refurbished and redone. And the question is that actually part of the educational budget or part of the facility, the asset of the town?
Rob Mann, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Rob.
I understand that the school building is it's owned by the town, but there's a lot of employees such as Bill Birch that are employed by the Board of Education that he isn't employed by the town, along with people that maintain, clean, do repairs at the school. So are those going to be a consideration also if capital expenses and repairs are going to go over to the town side? Are those employees going to have to be changed also, or is that even something that's been thought of?
No. Can I speak to that?
Go ahead. Melinda.
So no, that has not been a consideration. Those are employees under the Board of Education's budget. One of the things that when we were talking about this, when we were developing the budget initially, was to put forward to the Board of Finance those capital projects that we believe should be on the town side. However, other districts, other towns develop a multi-year capital plan. They take all of the capital projects that need to be done over a 5-year span, and then they combine them, and then they prioritize those projects in the year that they're going to be completed. And usually a building committee oversees that whole process. So one of the things that you could think about is taking all of these suggestions that we would like to see repaired in the school, develop a multi-year plan for the town and the school, and then prioritize those projects over that time. Then that would make some sense and be fair on both sides. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that? Whoop.
Rob, I'm sorry, Rob, this is Steve. The whoever sort of manages the projects or runs the projects, whether it's the personnel at the school or somewhere else, doesn't affect whether it's a capital project or not. So your question, I understand your question, but making this a town project wouldn't have any influence on the staffing levels in Bill Birch's area at the school or anything. It's not part of the factor in considering whether it's capital or not.
Correct.
Rhonda?
Yes, Rhonda Rooney. For Melinda, I think that's a great idea with the capital project. Who would be responsible for heading that particular project up
So
if we were
typically-
to move forward in that direction?
And that would be up to the Board of Selectmen, but in other districts that I've worked in other towns, the building committee determined what projects fell into what year and what the priorities were. They made an objective assessment of those projects that needed to be done town and school-wide.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on this topic among Board of Finance members?
This is Steve again. I guess we should try to get some idea. We've heard from a couple of members, but our struggle here is should this or shouldn't this be in the capital program for the whole town as opposed to town versus school again. And we've heard from a couple of members. What do the other members who I haven't heard from yet, or we haven't heard from yet, think?
Well, just speaking for myself, I know we're still technically running through the review of all the pages of this document to get the story on everything that's happening. I got a sense, at least for my own purposes, that when we get to the end of reviewing this document, I know I'm going to want to take a look at how can we get our total mill rate increase down to a certain target and then back into it. And I think where these projects land, whether they happen this year or next year, or whether they happen in the school budget or on the town capital improvement plan, might be a function of what we have to do in order to back into a certain mill rate. That's just my own thinking. If anybody else wants to chime in, they're welcome to.
Jim Bellavance, Board of Finance.
Go ahead,
Jim
Jim.
Bellavance, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim. I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now? Okay, I
I
had
can.
a question before, but I was muted, so. Actually, it was for Bill Burge. A question on a couple of things here. On the HVAC for the high school, I believe. Was that for one of the shops or something like that? Is that unit just, what's the deal with that? Is it shot? Is it not running? What's going on with that?
No, Jim, that is because of programming changes that we're doing with that. I mean, the high school has got a deal going with a manufacturing thing that they're working with QVCC.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing some boat building up there. They're going into some manufacturing items. So the existing dust collector system that's there was made specifically to pick up sawdust.
Okay.
So now there's going to be other things. There's going to be some volatile organics. There's going to be some other things that in order to do it correctly, we need to add this piece of equipment.
And as far as the pointing of the bricks, that's a no-brainer, I assume. I assume you're getting a little bit of water damage?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So this is, this is an area on the middle school that we have chased these leaks for many years.
Okay.
We've gone down, we thought it was HVAC systems, we thought it was coming in through duct work. We have come down to the fact that it is actually penetrating the brick and going through the mortar joints and running down inside the CMU, hitting some girders inside, running out and dripping into the classrooms. And we've looked at it, and it's the mortar. It needs to be pointed and sealed.
Very good. Thank you very much.
But again, Jim, I need to also point out that this masonry is over 30 years old now, and
Oh, no, I'm not disputing that. Thank you very much. Aaron, I have a question. I have a comment for you.
Go ahead, Jim.
I looked at these capital expenses, and we are trying to do a flat budget here, folks. The two items that I just discussed, the HVAC, which has to do with kids' respiratory systems and whatnot. I mean, I really feel as though that's a capital expense item I think we shouldn't ignore. And obviously the pointing of the bricks, water damage is the worst thing. Other than that, I really truly believe, as far as the basketball floor, the locker rooms and stuff like that, I truly believe we're gonna have to put that on hold. But if we just do those two items, we can drop that capital expense down to $80,235. So just while we're doing our budgetary thoughts and stuff like that, I think that might be the route we're gonna have to go. I know it's not popular, but we're gonna have to cut funds from somewhere. And I truly believe out of the capital expenses, those are the two items that are the most important.
Jim, just to make sure I understand, you have identified the HVAC and the middle school masonry repair.
That is correct.
Okay.
Orla, can you put a number around those?
The HVAC was $67,735, and the pointing of the bricks was $12,500.
Hold on. So, Orla, you're highlighting HS shop.
Yep.
Jim, did you mean HS shop or did you mean HS HVAC?
The shop one, it's the HVAC system, $67,735. That's the one where they're doing boat building and stuff like that. Like I said, if there's a lot of contaminants in the air, you definitely want to have a proper exhausting system for this.
The high school shop, the HVAC system is for the high school shop.
That is correct.
Got it. So the HVAC system that we're talking about rests in the line item called HS shop.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, Aaron?
Go ahead.
One of the reasons that the high school locker room and the flooring came into play is because in another 2 years, we're going to have a NEASC visit. And those very items were cited 10 years ago in the NEASC report. And that has a lot to do with the high school accreditation, the national accreditation. That's why those appeared in our upgrades for this year. But I will say that within another year, those are going to need to be done, or accreditation could be in jeopardy.
Jim Belbans, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim.
Melinda, I totally get where you're coming from. I just think this is something that we just got to table for this year. I think what you really need to do for next year is we just make sure those are at the top of the list.
Okay.
Rob Wirge, Board of Finance, if I could jump in. I had a question. If someone could, maybe Bill, restate or clarify the high school shop HVAC system. We think of HVAC systems as heating, venting, and air conditioning. I think what I heard was that this is not replacing a system that we have. This is a new system to help remove volatiles from a new process that we're doing at the school. What we have is adequate for what we were doing, but with the change of new items in the shop, we need to get the better airflow in the shop. Is that the case, or is this truly a replacement of the existing HVAC system?
No, Bob, you are correct. It's not actually a heating, ventilating, and air conditioning system. It's an exhaust and scrubbing system. So in the past couple of years, they've started to do some boat building work up there. They're looking at this manufacturing thing that's going to go on. They're doing things with plastics. So we're actually looking at building an anti-room that is negative pressure, that has some exhaust with some carbon filters, scrubbers to exhaust to the outside to get rid of those volatiles. It's a separate area to do those kinds of things. The existing heating and ventilating is fine, and the existing dust collector is fine. This is for new things that we're doing now that we haven't done in the past.
Okay, thank you, Bill, for clarifying. I thought that's what I heard. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. It's to support that. And I don't think there's any disagreement that if we've got volatiles in the facility, we need to find a means to extract those because there's a safety environmental issue there and safety personnel or student issue. Overall, I didn't chime in earlier. Overall, I think on the surface, the idea of the town supporting and managing the building capital makes sense. I really can't see a negative downside or a consequence to that, other than I think where Rhonda was going, which is we do need clarity around what falls under repair and what falls under capital. There's other line items in the budget for repair of plant, the plant and the buildings. So how much of that stays and how that's managed, not necessarily this year. I think we can get our arms around this year, but we need to set ourselves up for success for subsequent years with different names and different faces in these meetings down the road so that there's no confusion there. And that might just take a small subcommittee or a small group of folks to help define that, maybe with Orla's help, so that we have clarity around repair versus capital. And then lastly, something to think about is with the buildings, there, as we've seen going through the other portions of the town budget, there are a lot of buildings and there are a lot of requirements and a lot of needs, and it's going to be tough to decide what happens, what gets done and what doesn't get done in each year. And to that end, rather than having separate pockets of reserves over here, we have so much a year for the library roof, and then we start putting a certain amount in for roads and a certain amount over here. We might want to think about that more on a general basis so that we put X amount aside, but then each year it's decided on what's most critical. Because if we try to serve everyone at every facility and every department with their buildings, we wouldn't have enough money to put money aside for all. So I'm just suggesting perhaps it's done more on a macro basis where we pull everything together and then decide A, how much is put in there, and then B, where does it go each year, what's needed most and where do we spend it.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. I really like that suggestion on prioritizing the capital expenses. Maybe have a list of what every department needs, and then we have to break them down to what's most critical or not.
Jim Bell, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim.
Rob Wurge, I completely agree. The one thing we really absolutely need to do after this budget's over is to have a firm understanding of what is a capital expense, and everybody plays it the same way. Like Rob Mann was saying, you know, you've got the library that does certain capital things. The school, all of these. I think what we need to do is identify what is a capital expense. Is there a certain monetary value that has to go along with it, a minimum? But I really feel as though that's something that we should button up after the budget is over. That's very important, I believe.
Anyone else?
Just one more thing. Yeah, maybe we should actually consider like a one-liner capital expense line item. I think this is kind of what Bob was suggesting. Maybe a one-liner capital expense that we put in every year, and then we kind of dip into that line item to prioritize what needs to be done.
Any other thoughts on this?
This is Steve. Do I generally sort of hear a consensus that this ought to be part of the whole capital budget? Is that fair? And I don't want to, I'm not trying to force it to one or the other, just trying to understand where everybody's coming from.
Steve, Rob Wurge.
Go ahead, Rob Wurge.
No, I was going to say, I said I don't see I don't particularly see any downside to it. I think on the basis, it seems like a sound and good idea. But I wasn't necessarily meaning that it's a go or a yes for me. I think we need a little time to look through the school side. Let's do my opinion is let's do the full review, not lose sight of it. I think it's important. We can come back to it and maybe make a decision after we've done the full review.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm 1 out of 6.
Melinda?
The other 5 feel we should act quicker, Steve, by all means. I mean, I'm just, one opinion is that I think we should wait and hear it all and then loop back to it.
I think it's just an issue
Rob
we
Word.
need to address, so now or later, the question's been asked. I think we need to come up with an approach, whatever it is. It just need to be, we need to give a solid answer to that sort of question. Should this be part of the overall budget or the school budget only? That's a fair question the school's asked us.
And Aaron McGarrett, Board of Finance, and Rob Words, you and I started to speak at the same time, and I was basically going to share a thought that was similar to yours, which is thoughts that I shared a few minutes ago, which is I feel like we're making our first review through this document, and we get to the end. At least for my purposes, I know I'm going to be kind of wondering how we can back into a certain mill rate, and then decisions will be made as a result of that. And I feel like keeping this spreadsheet that's open in front of us right now, keeping this in mind would be a good thing to do. We can absolutely come back to this. I just, like when we were talking about the fire departments and like when we were talking about the roll-off truck, what I don't want to do is encumber any dollars in my mind at this point. I want to get through this whole document and then decide, then make the tough decisions. So that's just my own thoughts. But I think Rhonda had some thoughts too.
I agree with that as well. And I just wanted to ask, Melinda, is what Rob suggested the same thing as what you were suggesting as from the standpoint of the capital expenses recommendation that you had brought up?
And that really was the discussion that the members of the Board of Ed had as we were building this budget. And so, obviously looking at all those things that we put forward, we have we prioritized in our own mind. I think Jim did pick out the 2 things that are our most immediate need. Certainly the rainfall that happens in 2 of the classrooms at the middle school really does need to stop. And the upgrade to the shop, we've done a lot of work with articulation agreements with QVCC and other agencies in the state, especially the Department of Labor. And we've been recognized as a site especially for Mike Joyce's manufacturing program. And so that upgrade to the ventilation system is really important to making sure that program is successful. So, I mean, and I'm sure Bill could jump in and say, where the priorities are, but in my mind, those 2 things are important to us. Obviously, they all are, or they wouldn't have appeared in the budget, but more or less, we were hoping that, our projects combined with other projects in the town, we obviously know that every single department has needs, and then someone has to decide, which projects are the priority. So.
Thank you.
Rob Word, Board of Finance, just for a point of clarity before we move off on the 226, is that the same line item as the line item that calls for under physical plant capital outlay, general capital improvements, which states 269? That 226 and 226 part of that 269? Or is the 269 another bucket of money that's needed for a different set of capital improvements?
Rob, this is Bob Gentis. Yeah, the 226 505 is part of what is included in the capital line item budget of for plant and operations.
Oh, well, that's good. So it's not in addition. And then the delta between the 2, how should we think about the 269 minus the 226?
Correct.
How should we think about that difference, that 40-something thousand dollars?
Those were not capital items.
There are not capital items in the capital item line.
I'll let Bob answer, but I seem to recall that. Bob?
I just have a question. What page is the 269 on in our packet?
I'm on page 13 of Education Board of it. Maybe I jumped ahead, Aaron. I just wanted to make sure that we were not, there weren't two $200,000 line items, which there's not.
Right.
And then why there was a difference. Page 13.
Oh, good question.
At the bottom, third line up from the bottom, 907.
Okay. So this is towards the beginning of the packet?
About halfway
Rob?
through.
This is Bob Gentis. I can answer it for you. There are a couple of
Thank
things
you, Bob.
included in the request to the town that were included in the capital budget in that 50734. One of them is the elementary school power upgrade, and it has some has to do with the total costs of them are under $5,000. So the elementary school power upgrade was $4,282. There was another one for furniture, which is a more of having come from an industry background, this is something that we would have depreciated, but middle school furniture, which was $16,212.28. So there were things that were not included in the capital project budget request that was going to the, you know, the expectation is that would be part of the town's budget. And just as an aside, the previous district that I came from, we did the same thing. We presented our capital budgets to the town and they were all approved together as a separate budget. And then the town that I live in has done the same thing since I was on the Board of Ed in the 90s. That's big. So the discrepancy is because some of the things were not included in the capital project that was submitted to you guys for the town's
Right.
consideration.
May
Okay,
I can-
thanks,
I
Bob.
can-
To be,
Rob, this is Kathleen.
one
did
second,
not-
Kathleen, if I could just, Kathleen, can I just follow up on Bob's comment real quick?
Sure.
The
But
40
I
so
got the
what you're
answer
saying-
for you.
Go ahead,
Bob,
Rob.
so the 43, it's not that we're going to see that later on tacked on. That was specifically and deliberately not part of the 226 because it addresses other items, maybe not specific to the building, that we can cover later. It's not part of the actual building request for the 226.
Right, the 226 that was up for town consideration. Yes.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
I prepared the schedule, Rob, and I specifically left off the courtyard because that's landscaping. There's a courtyard for $15,000. It's landscaping to the courtyard. I specifically left off the classroom furniture because that has nothing to do with the building. And I specifically left off our custodial equipment. So that makes up the difference to the 269.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I can find it. I'm flipping through. This is the print off that Orla gives us at the first budget hearing. It's called Town of Thompson Fiscal Year 20 to 21 General Fund Budget. This is the document that I've been looking at through all the meetings that we've been discussing, and I'm trying to find. I know I have written in my notes from a few meetings ago. Board of Ed has capital of 269 in its budget, and about 155 or so should be moved to the town ? But I just don't.
Aaron, if I could, I
don't
jumped
see
to, you're correct. It's not in the packet that we've been looking at
Oh,
in the last
okay.
several meetings. There was another
Okay.
packet that was given, to us for the,
Got it.
from the Board of Ed. It's the thinner of the two packets, lots of line items, and it looks like an Excel
Got it.
document.
Got it.
On page
Thank you.
13 of that. So I said I
Okay.
jumped ahead a little bit,
Thank
but I
you.
just wanted to make sure there wasn't an error there. Thanks.
That's good. Now I know where to look for it. Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? All right. I believe that puts us on.
Aaron, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Aaron, I'm very
Yeah.
sorry. It's Rob Word, Board of Finance. I
Yeah.
do think we should change. I I do think we should change, and I've done this on another line item. I think we should call it what it is, line 16. It's
I
not an
agree.
HVAC system.
I agree.
Bill described it. I don't remember the words. He did a good job, but I don't
Exhaust
remember
system?
what he called it.
You
Maybe
can
that's
call it
right.
an
How
exhaust
about an
scrubber.
air purification? How about an air purification?
Well, I think it's just sucking it out of the building. I don't know if it's purifying it and bringing it in, but
Well, they
whatever it
have,
is,
Yeah,
let's call
he
it.
it has the scrubbers and all that kind of stuff in there, so that's
True.
pretty close
Yep,
to that.
true. Okay, thank you. Orla, whoever's running the PowerPoint.
And good point, Rob. I actually had that thought while we were discussing all this, and it skipped my mind. So thank you.
Okay.
So I believe that puts us on page 101 in our packets. That's where we were last meeting when we started discussing the spreadsheet that's open up in front of us. And I believe that means we can officially move on from page 101 to page 102, if I'm correct. Right, sorry, because 102 is the summary of 101. So that means we actually move on to 103, which is debt retirement. Any questions here, any discussion here?
Well, this is Steve from the Board of Finance. Well, I wondered if you had a chance to see what our low point was in terms of cash availability over the last year or two.
Hi, Steve. This is Orla. Yeah, I sent you guys an email. Sorry for the late emails. They went out just before the meeting. So the lowest level of cash we had was at the end of August 2009, and it was 3.16 million.
That, Orla, if I might just follow up, I assume that, I think we've talked about this separately before, that obviously some of that money's in an operating account, which probably earns little, if anything. And even the rest of it, it's in, I assume, short-term, some sort of short-term instrument that perhaps pays us 1% or something. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct. So we, out of that 3.6, 1.25 is in our state STIF account, which is the short-term fund you're referring to.
Okay. The reason I bring it up is we have been, and Jim, you've alluded to this in prior meetings and several others have as well. We are buying relatively, they're not small from an individual's viewpoint, but relatively small items like trucks and so forth. And when you buy these, even though they're sort of a capital lease type of purchase, we're paying, I'm going to guess, in the 3 or 4% range, probably at best.
Yes.
At the same time, we're earning on money that we just have not used. You said the lowest is 3.6. We're
No,
earning
3.16
on that, but we're paying for items that we could just pay off. We're paying, again, 3 or 4%, again, maybe more on some of these things. I wonder if we might consider a way to actually save money going forward by paying these items. I assume there's no prepayment penalties.
No, there's no prepayment penalties. And yes, the lowest we were at was 3.16.
Oh, 3.16, I'm sorry.
No.
So we could easily pay off these trucks and so forth. Again, where we're paying interest, 3 or 4 times what we're earning. And it might make some sense for us. It does a couple things. It just plain saves us money. 2, it reduces the requirement in FY21 by, looks like $170,000.
170 for the vehicles, correct.
Right. So it'd save us $170,000 in FY21. If in FY20, the year we're in right now, if we paid off those obligations. Again, I don't know why we wouldn't want to do this, but I'd be happy to try to get an understanding as to why it might not make sense.
Steve, Rob Wurge, Board of Finance. If I could ask a question. similar to the 3.16, but to Orla, what should we think of as the zero mark? It shouldn't be zero. I'm sure we need something for our bond rating and other things. So can you give us some guidance on, should we think of 3 million as zero, or 2 million as zero, or 1 million? Like what should be that minimum threshold to stay whole with the other obligations?
I would say about 3 million, even if we left the 1.25 alone. I'll give you an example of where we stood at the end of August last year was, 2 months of not receiving any tax payments, and money still going out, for 2 months of expenses plus anticipated. Each of our operating accounts, both the Board of Ed and the town, each had $500,000 in it, and we averagely leave about 1 million minimum in each of those accounts. So, and $500,000 could be easily swiped up in one check run that's carried out by the school. So I would suggest it would be 3 million. That would be a conservative guess.
What is our balance at the moment, Orla, do you know?
I just checked it before I left the office. We're just under 6 million at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jim Bellavance, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Steve, can you, so basically what you're saying is on that, obviously you're talking about the roll-off truck, right?
No, I'm talking about the truck loan from 2015, the sweeper from 2018 and so on. But the roll-off truck would be in the same category.
On page 103,
Okay.
under the fiscal 21 column, the sum at the bottom.
No, I'm not talking about
27,304.
the school bond or the big, the ones we can't do are not reasonable. But, we have $14,000 we owe on a dump truck. We would save that much money next year if we paid it this year.
Sure.
And, we'd actually probably have to pay a little less. We would pay, I don't know whether what date that gets paid exactly, but, I'm sorry, that ends in 22. It's 14 a year, I guess. So,
Couple more
yeah,
years.
we would, again, it's not giant money, but it does certainly save some money and it's kind of free. We're just letting this, we're kind of leaving some money on the table, so to speak, by not addressing these things. Again, if there are big expenses like the school and so forth, that's not an option for us. But these relatively for our town, small items, we are leaving money on the table by not paying these promptly.
I think the reason we have there was so many needs for the highway department when we first started looking at the fleet and realizing the condition, and so I mean we really had to do a lot of buying, and I'm
not trying to second guess.
I understand now. I understand now where you're coming from, Steve. At the time, it was probably the right thing. But I do agree with you that if we could get some of these things off of here, debt service kills people, I'm telling you. I mean, we did what we did at the time because the budgets were so tight. But if we could get those items off of there, that certainly would be a huge help.
As of, if you look at the spreadsheet that all this kindly put up for us there, if you just take a quick look at the items in column N, as in November, those would be the amounts that approximately, there may be some amounts due the rest of this year, I'm not sure, but we would need 46,419 plus 14,655 plus 275, 962 plus 66 and 108. Those amounts would, subject to what we're already scheduled to do this year, Orla, would pay off those vehicles and save us from spending $170,000 next year and subsequent amounts in years ahead as well. So again, it might be something to consider. It would save us, cash flow next year, saves us interest cost. And again, given the fact that we're earning one and paying whatever it is, 3 or 4, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, one thing I just wanted to point out was the date I have here is 7/1/2021. So it doesn't, the numbers don't necessarily include the debt service for fiscal 21. It would be more 22, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking it was 20. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So the total of the numbers that I'm highlighting here are 511,000.
Okay.
And if you take into account the 170, so we're talking about 680,000 overall.
But that would save us 170 next year alone and similar amounts going forward. All those amounts plus interest would be saved.
Yes.
Orla, I wanted to make sure I heard you correct. That was 511, and then the second number was 680.
The first number was 511. And then if you were to add the 170 to it, the total would be 680.
So 680 as of April 20th, 2020, so to speak.
Yes.
Because we still have to bake in the fiscal 21 payments, right? Looking that
Yes.
principal balance at 7/1/21 is really the FY 22
Correct.
schedule.
Yes, that's correct.
So 680 that's the real number.
Yes.
As of today, the real number is 680.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
Aaron, can I speak?
Go ahead, Rhonda.
So just to get my understanding here, the 63, 67, 6112, what is that number representing? That's all I guess what I want to find out is our fund balance number. We're talking about taking the money out of fund balance. Is that correct?
I'm not sure where we're looking to take it out of. When you mentioned a dollar amount of 63, I'm not sure where you saw that on
Yeah,
this.
I see that. I see what that is now. So I'm gonna change that amount. But- Steve, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it actually includes, for example, the school, the loan oil spill, all the numbers in column N as in November. That would
Oh,
be
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
includes the things like the school.
I see that. So I guess my question would be, if we took that money out of fund balance, hypothetically, you're saying that the fund balance number, which keeps us in good rating with our bond rating, usually we look at a percentage, but the dollar amount is 3 million, is what we discussed a few minutes ago, approximately?
No, that was in relation to cash.
Okay, so I guess my question would be is, where would we be considering taking this money from? Fund balance? Steve?
The particular account isn't relevant. It's out of our free cash is what I guess what I'm thinking, which is $6 million approximately, or at the moment.
It's $6 million. So either way, it would require appropriation, Steve, as you know. And as it stands at the moment, if you're considering rolling it into next year's budget, is that what you're considering?
No, I think we should do it this year.
So as Rhonda was mentioning, we do have to look at it from the fund balance perspective because it would be an additional appropriation out of fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just bear with me a sec, I can bring up where we stand with the fund balance now.
And Orla, I'd like to also look at if this is something we want to consider doing out of this year's fund balance. Hypothetically, as Steve had mentioned, we also want to keep in mind, again, that the school may be coming up short on their special ed, which would hypothetically be coming out of fund balance as well, to make sure that the percentage is in the good area that we need to have it in to keep the money where we need it so that we have the bond rating that we need in the future. So those are my concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good question, but keep in mind that when they look at when they evaluate us for bond rating, they consider that what you already owe is part of that equation. So if you already owe money on trucks and so forth, that's factored into their thinking typically.
Right. So the whole thing would change once it's paid off. I understand.
Right, and so we look a little bit better. We look a little worse because the cash would be gone, but we look a little bit better because the obligations are gone as well.
Okay, so I'm going to just do a new share here to show you where we stand with the fund balance. Can you guys see that?
I can.
Okay. Try
If you scroll down.
Yeah, I just got to move my little windows out of the way. Okay, so with the appropriation for the MPS litigation, which we haven't progressed further with that at the moment, but we're showing less than 2 million currently for fund balance. So if we are looking to appropriate it out of this year, I think that would be kind of tough. We could certainly look at some of the funding that's available and see the higher rates and maybe pay those off on a first basis. And that's something I can certainly look into tomorrow and break down each of those particular line items by the interest rate on the vehicle loan.
Orla, you can correct me if my memory doesn't serve me well, but I do believe that when it comes to bond rating agencies, their rule of thumb is that your surplus should be no less than, what, 7%, 7.5% at minimum?
Ideally, they would like it to be 10.
Right. But I'm just, I believe 7 or 7.5 is where they say, really, trust me, just don't go below that number.
Our auditors would not recommend us going anywhere below 7.
Right.
So we want to be aware of this when we, are you going to look, Orla, are you going to get some information on this for next week, or?
Yes, I can do so for Thursday.
Again, it's just a
And
thought.
Steve, I just wanted to say,
The attack, maybe to help us in this coming year.
Steve, I wanted to say that was a great idea. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
One of the things I did share with you guys in email today while we're talking about interest rates is one of the members had suggested that I revise some pricing on that roll-off truck possible lease to own option that was provided to us. So it did benefit us slightly. The original rate that he had proposed was 4.3% over 5 years. And when they redid the numbers for me on Friday, it came back as 3.96. So it's a saving of a couple of grand a year.
I'm sorry, Orla, you said the rate was what?
Originally, it was 4.3%, and the revised rate came in at 3.96.
3 point, I'll call it 4. Okay.
Yeah, it's in an email I sent you guys out, but it just was before the meeting, so you probably haven't had a chance to read it.
I haven't seen it, but thank you very much for doing that.
Okay.
So, Rob Mann, Board of Finance. So you're gonna look at all of this debt service on this different equipment, and we're gonna try to break it down as what we're paying for percentage rates. Is that what I understood?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if we're paying 1% or something, then don't do it, but that would not make sense. But if it's more than 1, I think we might save some money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Orla, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other discussion on debt retirement? Any other discussion?
I got a quick comment. Steve, I think you're onto something there. Like to know a little bit more about it, but going into the fact that we have to consider erecting a salt shed here in a very timely manner. I think getting rid of these smaller debts and stuff like that will clean up that department a lot, so that we just have to worry about the salt shed. So I think it's a good idea, because that salt shed's going to run us some pretty stout money. So getting all of these off the books would be great.
Any other comments on the debt retirement section of the budget? Thoughts, comments? Okay. Move on to contingency. And it looks like the request is moved up from the 2019 to 2020 budgeted amount. Uh, 130 includes amounts estimated for potential pay increases for both union and non-union staff. Yep, now I remember. That was discussed way in the beginning. Questions, discussion, thoughts on contingency fund?
Aaron, Rob Wurge. The only question I had on this line was the 75 from the prior year that wasn't used. Did that roll forward into this year?
No, it does not roll forward.
75,000. So what happens to it?
It goes back into the fund balance if it's not used.
Well, we're moving things back into the fund balance and potentially making other decisions with the fund balance, like retiring debt. Can we move it forward and minimizing the impact of the contingency this year, which is almost twice of last year that we didn't use?
We could, but keep in mind that the difference in the contingency will eventually be moved into the specific line item should the pay increases actually happen and the union contracts are fully negotiated. So,
Well, help me out.
Are you speaking, sorry, real quick, was that comment relative to the 130
correct,
or to the 75?
to the 130.
Okay.
Actually, Orla, I believe that actually if we spend money during the year, knowing that we have this contingency, it actually would show up in the particular item where we spend it. We might, if we spent it for overtime for snow removal, because we have a contingency, it would show up in overtime for snow removal line, not on contingency. Is that fair or no?
That is correct.
So Rob, I think we might have, we might spend this, but we don't see it on this line.
So was the 75,000 spent or was it not spent?
So the 75,000, are you referring to the money that's in the current year's budget?
Correct.
Okay, it has been, some of it has been appropriated. If we just check the report, just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to flick back to the report for the March financial reports. Just bear with me 1 moment, please.
While you're flipping back, Orla, Steve, the reason I'm asking is that even if the 75 was spread out or not, if it wasn't spent, I'm really looking at that 55 delta. And we're comparing this year to last year, right? So we're taking on 55 and overall we have 670,000 up. So the 55 is meaningful if we haven't spent all of the 75.
All right, no, I understand.
Rob, what I'm showing here on the screen is the report. Now, unfortunately, it's a portrait-shaped report, but if you see the last line is contingency, the 75,000 is that budgeted amount. The amount that is, I'm just going to scroll up, revised budget is currently 71,900, which means that a little bit more than 4,000 has been appropriated to a different line item. And actually, I can tell you what that $4,000 was for the repairs that were required at the Teague building. So therefore, the available contingency at the moment is 71,900.
And the anticipation for the balance of this year is how much?
I can't say. You know what? I can give you that information on Thursday. I don't think we're certainly not going to need $71,000.
Well, it's contingency.
Right.
So you know until it happens.
We're not going to need it. You know, the bottom line is we always end up with a surplus and fringe benefits just because of, unfortunately, how it is. So usually we'll try to use the contingency last. So we may not need it at all.
And your confidence in us needing the 130 is 100, 0, somewhere in between?
Well, this was proposed by the Board of Selectmen. Typically, we go for about approximately 70,000 in contingency. The dollar amount that I added is approximately $60,000 or $70,000. And again, that's just based on an estimate of what we anticipate, at least what we anticipated back in the time when we were when this was under review and before we had started negotiations with the union.
Yeah, Rob,
That was that. What are you, sorry, Rob, what are your thoughts right now?
I can't say, we haven't even started negotiations with the union because of the difficulty with COVID.
Rob, one of the things we do is to, if you recall all the departments, there were, I think with the exception of the library, none of them showed a pay increase.
Mhm.
And I think that's all because it's pending the negotiation. So we sort of lump sum an item in contingency to cover those specific amounts when we finally realize what they'll be.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can I have a quick question to whoever might be able to answer the question it's not on contingency, it's on union negotiations. Has anybody been to any of those meetings at all, or have they not begun yet? And if so, are they talking about potentially, because of the corona, possibly putting freezes on raises and certain things to that nature?
I'll let somebody else speak to that, other than to say I also speak to this, but I suspect those are at this point executive type sessions.
I would agree with
Okay,
that, Rob. Sorry, Steve. We cannot, I can't provide any updates at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other discussion about contingency fund?
Oh, sorry.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. We now flip to the school board budget. And of course, I know that we've discussed in some detail some of the capital/maintenance items that were originally in their budget and some of them may move over, some of them may not. I know we've obviously gone into some detail there. And we did hear their sort of mile-high view presentation of their budget back in early March. But this is an opportunity for anyone on the Board of Finance to ask any questions that go anywhere within this budget, whether it's health insurance or you name it, compensation for educators, administrators, heating costs, you name it. Is there any questions from anyone?
Mike, Ron Rooney, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
My question would just be again, and it does pertain to the COVID situation and the union negotiations, if there's any movement on the health insurance and or the raises, or are they going to remain flat, or are they going to, put more out, like for the families to pay on their health insurance, therefore bringing the amount that we have to pay down? Is there any talk about that, or are it's just kind of blind until they finish negotiating?
So I can answer that. So we are in the middle of, we had this year negotiated 4 contracts, one that we settled with the administrators, so that's complete. We have 2 others that are underway, and one that is due to start. All of our sessions moving forward have halted because of COVID. So, and we can't go backwards, right? We've gotten to certain points in 2 of our contracts, and we can't go backwards. So I don't believe that that's going to be part of the discussion, but you never know. But at this point in time, we have 3 unresolved contracts pending.
Thank you, Melinda. And one more question would be, what are the contractual obligations that you have right now for just the contractual obligations? If nothing else was on the table, what is that total number? Do you know?
Bob can tell you as far as salaries and healthcare. Bob, can you pull that up?
I'm not really, Rhonda, this is Bob. I'm not really sure the question. Do you mean just personnel?
I'm looking at anything that is contractual that cannot be adjusted. I guess that would be personnel or the health insurance premiums.
Okay, let me just pull it up.
Increases above last year. And more realistic rather than inflated in the event that the unions don't put through the full raise platform. And the only reason I'm saying that is because outside of the unions you know, people are not only losing their jobs, but those that are keeping their jobs are taking substantial pay cuts and bonuses are being cut out. So I'm thinking maybe they'll be along the same lines for this year, but maybe not.
Yeah, the overall personnel costs have increased 3.8%. That includes the changes in salary, which is average right now 2.35. And insurance increase is it combined with our health insurance includes dental, and includes the administrative costs and HSA. So our health premium cost is 17.11%.
So what would that be?
I'm sorry?
Can I have and rather than a percentage, could you please give me a dollar amount?
Bob, I can help you. That's 448,000. That's on the schedule.
With the different salaries and benefits, total cost is 560,322. That's the difference.
And that's above what it was last year?
Yeah, there's a difference between fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021.
Right, but the insurance went up 450,000. Right. The transportation, we've managed to keep that increase at, is that it? That's on page 64, Bob, of our presentation. Is that still correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's what, 39,000, 40,000?
38,633.
Okay.
Thank you. So my thought is, and again, I'm a very big picture person, and I do appreciate, Rob Wurge, all the detail that you're bringing to the table. But my biggest concern is putting the budget out, being that people can't vote on the budget. That's a real hard one for me to swallow, being that we've had issues getting budgets passed in the past. In addition to that, the COVID-19 situation that's going on. So looking at your page 12 on the budget presentation, which goes over the budget history, and what I want to bring this up for is these are the numbers that the town has approved at referendum after multiple referendums. Very hard to even get the approval of the voters to put forth these increases. You're looking at 2017, 2.78, 2018, 0.44, 2019, 1.49, and last year, I don't know if we had 4 or 5 referendums at 0.92. So for me, as one member of the Board of Finance, for us to put out anything above the average of that amount that they've been approving at referendum, I just don't think I could do it without them coming out to vote, especially with the situation that's going on. I just want to throw that out there as a thing to everybody. It's not that I don't support the school. It has nothing to do with that. It's simply about what's going on in the economy. I know that nobody wants to hear that. Nobody likes to hear that. But that's just my thought.
And if I may make a comment.
Absolutely.
As a superintendent of schools, seeing those very low increases over time, and I understand the situation that the town is in, and especially now. However, those small increases had to be absorbed at the cost of eroding programs for kids. And the biggest issue that we're having is we're just trying to sustain what we have. And all the big drivers in our budget are contractual increases, the significant healthcare increase, and then the additional liability that we have for other students that require special education services. It's like we're asking for anything else. We're just trying to maintain status quo. And my biggest worry is that we have to dig deep into this budget is going to be devastating, and programs for kids will be compromised. And I think Sean said it best. At a time when we're going to really need to support our students next year, this is going to be a very challenging situation, and I don't know how well the school system will fare in all of that. And yes, it'll all be in personnel because there's no place else to go in that budget. So,
Rainey, is Rainey Morin still on the call? I don't think so.
I see his name on the lineup, but video's turned off, microphone is turned off, and I know that there's folks who are technically plugged in here who may or may not be within earshot of the discussion at this time. So,
So my concern would be from the taxpayer standpoint. What is he there?
We need just
Yeah,
some action.
yeah, I'm here.
He just took off his microphone. There you go.
I'm here.
So Rainey, Rainey, I had a question for you. I mean, if you have a pulse or a feel for what's going on right now in the community, I know that there aren't people able to come into the town hall like they normally do, but maybe they do telephone, or maybe out in public you see them. But we're talking about the school budget right now, and I don't know, did you hear anything that was discussed or anything I said or Melinda said?
I've been on all evening. If you're asking for any idea on the pulse of the community, I can honestly say that other than the 3 or 4 or 5 Board of Finance meetings that have been held to date, those are the only comments that I've heard one way or another. There's not been one taxpayer who has made any comments to me personally. I mean, probably part of that is you're correct. No one's been able to come into the town hall for the last 4 weeks or so, but I do not have a pulse on that at all this year.
So thank you for that. And another question is, I believe Amy had mentioned that taxes would be postponed for 60 days, or taxes that were due or something to that nature. They have an additional 60 days to pay the taxes. Is that correct?
Sure. That has absolutely nothing to do with the budget, but one of the Governor Lamont's decrees was that towns throughout the state of Connecticut are going to be given on the July 1 tax bill, are going to be allowed, taxpayers are going to be allowed to pay those taxes instead of being due at the end of July. That first payment won't be due until the end of September. So there's a 3-month period of time, sort of a deferred tax. In other words, you don't have to pay your property tax in the month of July this year. You can pay it in any time between July 1 and September 30th without having to pay any interest or any other fees. So that's
And
great.
so-
That's great for the taxpayer, but that does nothing for the budget at all. What it actually does for the budget is it hinders it a little bit on the income side. First of all, on the cash flow side, I suspect most taxpayers, when the word gets out on this, which we're going to be publicizing in our legal notices when taxes are due, I think most taxpayers will probably hold off until September to make those payments instead of paying them in July. Why not, I guess? So that'll have a negative impact on cash flow. The other impact that it'll have is typically when taxes are due at the end of July and they're not paid until August or September, the town collects, as you know, by state statute, 18% interest on those back taxes, 1.5% a month. So we're going to lose out, the town is going to lose out on some income by not collecting about $10 million of taxes in the month of July. Probably a good part of that won't be collected to the end of September. So the revenue figures that I have given Orla in the budget do not reflect this yet, because This executive order that the governor put out was only put out about a week and a half ago. The Board of Selectmen voted on this last week. So, we haven't made any adjustments on the income side at all. But rough back of the envelope calculation, we're probably going to lose about $25,000 in interest that I had originally put on the revenue side that I'd given to Orla. But we haven't really even talked about that yet.
Right.
Greenie
Well, thank you.
Armageri. Go ahead. No,
I was just
gonna
gonna
Greenie
say-
Armageri. Go ahead, Go ahead, Rhonda. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I was just going to bring that up, that due to that, we're going to have some loss of revenue. And then my question, if you had heard anything further on that from the taxpayers, is if we were to increase taxes, do you feel as though they're going to be more behind on paying those because of the fact that, they're not happy that taxes went up simply because we had a double whammy? We had the reassessment as well as a tax increase without them being able to vote. I'm curious as to if people are going to be saying, well, you know what, we're just going to wait and then we don't get the income that we really need in. So I want to take that into consideration as well. I don't know if people would feel that way or not, but what's your take on that?
The answer there is I really don't know. Some people may feel that way. Other people may feel an obligation to pay their taxes on time, knowing the negative ramifications that it has to the town. So it's probably pretty well split down the middle. Who knows? I mean, this is the first time this has been done. Ask me in October and I'll tell you how it worked out then.
Have we ever had a budget go out without a referendum?
Are you asking me that?
I'm asking you, yeah. Do you know?
Sure.
And how did it?
I was on the Board of Finance for 22 years and chaired it for the last 8 years that I was on. And I can tell you that many years, particularly in the early years, budgets didn't go to a referendum. They were passed at town meetings for the most part. The referendum phenomenon is probably something that started, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so years ago. Aaron, your dad was the chair of the Board of Finance before me. He probably has a lot of insight on that as well. You might want to check with him about that. But the answer is we've passed many, many budgets by going to town meeting.
But we're not going to go to town meeting.
But this year, you're not going to town meeting or referendum.
Exactly. Has that ever happened before in your history that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. That's it. Thanks.
So yes, just to clarify, in the mid to late 90s, an ordinance was put in that required if a proposed budget exceeded a certain threshold, it had to go out to referendum. Previous to that, it was always settled at town meeting. Go ahead, Steve.
Has there been any change to what Rob Wirch talked about? I think it was last week, about the people who have a mortgage escrow their taxes, and that wasn't given a 60-day extension to pay it. Is that changed at all, Greenie?
Are you asking me, Steve?
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard anything. Quite frankly, this is so new that I suspect most of the escrow companies that are out there, and again, this is only particular to the state of Connecticut, and we're talking about national banks, the Wells Fargo and the Bank of Americas of the world, who hold most of the escrows. I'm not sure that they've even, they're even aware of this. But I suspect on most of those, I would think if the taxpayers have put in the money into their escrow for taxes, during the preceding 6 months leading up to the July collection period, that the escrow companies should pay them during the month of July because the money is there. I think, the problem there is a lot of those people have lost their jobs or have reduced income because of the COVID situation, and there may not be enough money in their individuals' escrows to make those payments in July, and it may take a couple of months before that money gets caught up in their escrows, and the escrow companies send it along to the town. Hard to say.
Well,
hard to say.
The question, Greenie, was more, did the order from, I assume this is a state order or something, did it specifically address the escrow accounts? The impression I got from our prior discussions were that they did not get the extension.
I don't know that. I have not heard that one way or the other. That was not part of any of the meetings that I was involved in with the other 168 towns in the state of Connecticut when tax collectors talked about this on numerous occasions. That never came.
You don't know. I just wondered if you have a couple or knew that we discussed this.
A little insight on that. I'm thinking that a lot of banks have allowed the mortgage payers to defer their mortgage payments for 60 days. And a lot of times the taxes are escrowed in the mortgage. So therefore, I would assume, and I don't know for sure, but I would assume if their mortgage has been deferred for 60 days, that it would include whatever's escrowed in there, the taxes, the insurance, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's right.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. I just had a quick question for Rainey. You said that, of course, we're going to lose the interest if because there's obviously not going to be any late fees on the property taxes and the car taxes. You said we'll be
not till
losing
October 1st, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be losing approximately 18% there, but won't we also be losing, because now we're talking about 60 days of money not being in the fund balance? Won't we also lose the interest on not having that money in fund balance?
Sure, absolutely. A typical month of July, we'd be collecting $9.5 million. That would be that a lot of that isn't going to be showing up in Orla's checking account until late September, I suspect.
So that's almost a bigger concern for us because I just remember that because I remember the numbers you had given us the year that the state didn't pass their budget and we pushed ours way back. And I remember you saying we lost a significant amount of money that year because it wasn't in there.
Yep, there was about a $200,000 negative impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Even for the FY19 Aaron McGarrett Board of Finance, even when we were trying to get past the FY19 to 20 budget and it stretched on through 5 referendums, I do recall the tax collector providing us with an approximate dollar amount that it was costing us as a result of opportunity costs, so to speak, because dollars were not coming in at the time they usually would be because the budget was not passed. Just one question at the risk of being redundant, and maybe this is a question for the tax collector, or it could be for the first selectman, it could be for the finance director, but at this time, we are not hearing anything about being reimbursed by the state or the federal government or anybody else for interest lost as a result of pushing out this due date from the end of July through the end of September. The governor has said all cities and all municipalities are going to push it out to the end of September, but he nor anyone else has said, we're going to reimburse you for interest lost as a result of this, correct?
That is correct. This is Orla.
Thanks, Orla.
Okay.
Aaron, this is Amy Sainage. Can I
ahead,
clarify?
Amy.
Can I clarify? There was a question about escrow payments. So I just pulled up the executive order 7S, section 6D, and this is what it talks about as far as escrow payments. It says financial institutions and mortgage servicers that hold property tax payments in escrow on behalf of a borrower shall continue to remit property taxes to the municipality so long as the borrower remains current on their mortgage or is in a forbearance or deferment program, irrespective of the borrower's eligibility for or participation in the deferment program or the low interest rate program. So there is that clause that's in there that should the borrower not remain current. So that might become an issue.
It sounds, Amy, that if they're in a forbearance program, they still have to pay the taxes.
Correct. If they're in the deferment program and they're current on their mortgage, the mortgage or the financial institution has to pay.
Doesn't mean they're current on their mortgage, current per the original terms of the mortgage, current to include a deferment. So if they've got, hey, 3 months you don't have to pay, they still have to pay the taxes, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah,
That's
I
what-
think that's right. They still have to pay the taxes, but what that doesn't say is when does the escrow company have to pay the taxes? Is it in July, in August, or in September? I think that part is not very clear. That's ambiguous.
We can get clarification on that, but everything that I've read up until this point that has come across my email seems to say that the financial institution is required to pay on time, which would be July 1st, no later than July 31st.
Amy, can I ask you a question? This is Orla. Can you tell me what section that is?
You
So I can
just
put it
went,
up on
okay,
the
if you
screen.
scroll down a little bit more, so you see 6, and then A is the deferment program, B, continue down, continue, continue, continue. And there it is,
Oh, yeah,
escrow payment.
okay.
I don't see where that says when they have to make that payment,
That's it. It doesn't say by when.
correct?
But it says irrespectives of the borrower's eligibility.
My question would be to get the details on, so long as the borrower remains current on their mortgage or is in a forbearance or deferment program, irrespective of the borrower's eligibility for participation. So if somebody is deferring their mortgage and the escrow company is not receiving those taxes, are they still obligated to pay them, or do they wait until the money comes in from the person paying the mortgage after their 60-day deferment and then pay the taxes?
Sounds like
So
they
I
have-
guess it goes back to the same question that Rainey said, when, yeah, they have to pay them, but when the mortgagee catches up?
Exactly. I've got a Zoom meeting with the other 168 tax collectors in the state of Connecticut this Wednesday afternoon. I'm sure that will probably be addressed, and if it's not, I will ask that question and have the answer for you for
Thanks,
your
Rainey.
Thursday
Yeah, because
meeting.
this could be a big, a $200,000 revenue loss for us on top of everything else. So I think it's pertinent.
Sure, absolutely.
Correct. All right, I'm looking at the clock. I notice it's 9:07 p.m. Is there any burning topic that anyone really feels strongly the need to discuss at this time? Because otherwise we could adjourn for the evening and just pick up where we left off on Thursday.
This is Steve.
I motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I was going to say, if no one else has a comment, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Steve, if you want to make the second, I'll accept that.
Fine, second.
So I have a motion by Rob Wirtz and a second by Steve Herbert to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, this meeting is now adjourned. It's 9:08 p.m. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you Thursday evening, 7 p.m.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.